Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. We're a father-son podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And hey, folks, guess what? Those of you on the YouTube, I always love talking in that extra Texas twang. If you're on YouTube, you see that Otis ain't in his office because I'm on location with my good buddy Jason up in the mountains northwest of Boulder, and we were going to do it outside, but it's Colorado summer, and that means thunderstorms. So we are inside, and by the way, not only is Jason a good buddy of mine, but part of the reason he's a good buddy of mine, he looks good in my hat, and he's a great veteran and a great supporter of veterans. Jason, man, what's going on?
Hey, it's good to be here and spend some time with you guys. Always great to be a part of anything that's tribe and purpose, and glad to have you here at my hacienda.
Yeah, it's great to be here, man. Finally making it up the road. So, I was talking with a buddy of mine, another veteran. You know him, Ryan, our common friend Ryan, and we were chatting about guys who figured it out how to start a business while they were still on active duty. And I really want you to share that, because we got a lot of service members, not just veterans, but we got some active duty guys in our audience. I'd love for you to share, what happened. I mean, was it did you hit your head or fall off the truck? What happened that got you to start the business while you were still on active duty, by the way?
Yeah, well, all that. I did fall out of an aircraft a couple times. Many aircraft accidents.
That's where the good ideas come from.
That contributed to it, but maybe it did. I don't
know.
Maybe. But I come from a really long line of military and also business owners. So my mom owned, pretty much all the businesses in town. But to be fair, there was only 200 people in my town.
Okay. But still.
Two. But I could make that sound.
Yeah, all of them. Nobody has to ask how many all is.
Right. And then my dad was a farmer. So, I grew up the old school way of, the P&L was in the old red notebook.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The ledger book.
Yeah, that's it. And, so my family goes all the way back to the Civil War. And so that was important for me to do that. I wasn't planning on doing 20 plus years doing it, but that just kind of happened. And I had this burning desire to continue that business ownership. And 24 years ago, I started my very first business.
Oh, wow.
And it's a company called Simply the Touch. And we custom frame sports memorabilia. Me and you were just there.
There's one right behind me, folks.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful piece of work right there.
So we do that. It's pretty much veteran ran by two vets out in Washington State. That they own a gallery out there, and that's where all the production happens. So that was my very first business, and man, I made so many screw ups in that business. It was ridiculous. People would send stuff. You get that nice guy. I'm kind of short of money. Can we make it a little cheaper? And then you go the other way, right? End up losing money on stuff. So, but I learned a lot of mistakes through that experience. And then I just had this urge to do more, right?
So what rank were you when you started that business?
I would have been a specialist E4.
Oh, wow.
Corporal,
yeah. So
right? Something like that.
You were still wet behind the ears, weren't you?
I was a sham shielder, man.
Yeah.
E4 Mafia.
That's right.
Yeah. And so anyway, I got a lot of people were doing real estate stuff then, right?
Yeah, I remember a lot of guys doing that.
Gosh, should I do real estate? And then I was like, no, I don't want to do real estate. But I love the business world. So how can I buy, strip or flip or whatever businesses, right? So I started buying these companies that were about ready to go under.
Mm.
And, we just like a house. You go in, put lipstick on it, and flip it and sell it.
Yeah.
And we'd make, $250,000, $300,000 every flip on these businesses that we would flip. So I started doing this over and over and over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, the lessons I learned through that experience were invaluable, because you want to talk about mistakes. I made every single one of them. That's for sure. But that only made me stronger.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and I would guess that going through that process, you're almost getting we always talk about learn from someone else's mistakes, not necessarily just your own.
Yeah.
When you're buying a business like that, you inherit this full stack of mistakes. And you can go through and start to learn those lessons. What were some things you picked out like that?
Well, mismanaged budget. That's always a big one, right? Budget's mismanaged, poor cash flow, poor, growth and scale balance, right? So, and for you, those of you that maybe that's something I even made up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I always think there's two sides of a company. You got the growth, that's the people and process, and the scale is the monetary side. And if you don't balance the two outright, you get an imbalance, right? So you fall short on the people side, fulfillment starts to fail, right? Mm-hmm. You fall short on the scale side, now that infects the employees. Now you got to reduce staff. So it's a balance of trying to keep them very much the same. And those are imbalances almost every company has. Every one of mine has it. All of them still today. And you just got to juggle it. That's what you got to do.
Well, it's constantly changing, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and everything that you're doing, you win a contract, you got to perform more, you got to do more, and then you get the cash flow and all those sort of things. And it's always a juggling act. That's that leadership piece of it, and managing the risk. I know you and I've talked about that a couple of times. When you step into a company, and you buy that company, if you will. I think that's a better way of putting it, because you're not stepping into it. You're actually taking ownership of a company. What's the first thing you ask that owner for?
Books.
Okay.
Number one thing.
Cash flow. It all comes down to cash flow.
All about the cash flow.
Yeah.
It's all about the money. Salespeople will tell you, it's not about the money, but it's about the money. Right?
Yeah.
It's all about the money, because if you don't have the right cash flow in a business, you don't have a business, period. You got yourself a really expensive hobby. So that's the way I look at it.
Why do you think that so many businesses and so many owners are so blind to that? Because, I don't want to shatter it too much on this, but that's been said before. It's like that is such a common thing of, it's like, the books are first. You got to make sure you get your accounting right, all those different things. But yet it still seems like 95% of people are making that mistake. What do you think that is, that self-delusion or whatever it is?
It's focus. It's marriage to their thing, right? So they get so focused on, I came up with this, and, this is my thing. And then they're not willing to adapt, and they start to focus on all the wrong stuff, and they don't focus on a P&L, right? And a P&L doesn't tell you anything today. That's a trailing indicator, right?
This is a great lesson. Would you mind?
Yeah, sure.
Please. This is Jason has taught me this one several times, and I'm asking for myself, by the way, to get taught it again. So please.
Those are the best questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody talks P&L, how important it is, right? But it's not important today. What's important today is knowing all your numbers that are coming in real time, day by day by day by day. And you'll hear people say stuff, well, I track this weekly. That's death. You have to know every single day. I can tell you the numbers on every one of my companies to the penny today, right? Because I get a report every morning from each one of my companies, and I know what's going on in them. But the P&L is designed to be the trailing indicator. How do you know where to go if you don't know where you've been, right? That's the key. And that's the key to a P&L. Don't use a P&L just as a, a peer guide, right? It is a guide. I often call it a North Star to your company, but
Mhm.
but you can't just count on that, right? And there's deeper things to dive into there with a P&L because it also shows you waste, right?
Mhm.
And you have to be able to accept waste. And I like to tell this quick story of one of the companies that I work with. When I first met them 4 years ago, I started pouring over their P&L, and they were paying like $1,200 or $1,300 a month for phone and internet service.
Jeez.
And I was like, I mean, are you getting service from the moon? Right? Do you have SATCOM or something? Right? And they've been with this company for like 15 years, and they just were loyal to them. And
Yeah.
we cut it. We had Comcast for Business, cost $298 a month. And we cut it out of the budget, and they were able to reallocate that into marketing. So it was a huge deal. And the cause and effects of that were, another $1,000 a month plus that we could put into the marketing budget. Now, knowing your leading indicators, right? Now okay, well, this is how much money it costs to create a lead, then through a sales process to make them a customer and fulfill, right? So now taking those dollars and plugging them into that math, now we know that's 5 more customers. Thank you very much. Right? Was there a mic I can drop there?
Yeah, well, you can't drop a mic. Yeah, because we got a lot further to go down this road before it to be mic dropping. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask on that because as we're talking through these mistakes that businesses make and that owners make, two of the things that you've pointed to that is where the mistake comes from. They're not bad things inherently, which I think is always something important to keep an eye on, because it's like these things all come from good places, 99% of the time. You mentioned focus and loyalty. Those are both good traits to have, except for when it's having these negative outcomes. So another good trait would be thinking about the opportunity cost and the efficiency of your time. So I want you to make a case, because you said that you need to check in daily, and you both laughed at checking in weekly. Part of me is like, gosh, I don't know if I need to spend 15 minutes every day when it could be 30 minutes on a Friday. Paint the case for why you need to be on top of that every day.
Well, there again, how can you control what's going on in your business if you don't know what's going on in your business every day, right? So that's just the key to it. And yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of I keep my thumb on the neck of everything. Why? Because you have to, right?
Right.
I mean, I have 14 businesses, and across that is probably 60 to 70 people that work in those different businesses. So they're not huge companies from an employee standpoint, which I don't have any employees. Not on paper anyway. Did I just say that recorded? but anyway, so you have to know because if today is a bad day, if Monday through Thursday are bad days and you find out Friday, now you just lost a ton of revenue and you could have pivoted on Tuesday, right? And it could have been just a small tweak you had to do. It could have been something in marketing. You could have had a really crappy sales guy that you brought on 2 weeks ago, and now you're just figuring it out that he sucks. So you got to let him go. I mean, I can keep piling on the reasons, but the point is expect what you inspect, right? And keep your finger on the trigger all the time. That's why a lot of businesses fail, because they're like, well, I'm the CEO. I just got to drink coffee and go golfing today. Well,
strategy. Do strategy. More strategy, right?
And that's just that's a horrible way to look at a company. I'm a CEO, and I'm very embedded in the things that I do with my company. I'm in it all the time. But I'm in it in a different way, not in it from a micromanagement standpoint, not in it from I'm working in it. No, I'm working on how I'm going to conduct my next scale.
I want to jump on something because it's one of my favorite analogies or metaphor, whichever one, Camden, you can tell me.
I'll guess.
Yeah. Well, it's the drift on our azimuth, right? And that was such a great example. If we find out that Monday night something was screwed up, but we wait till Friday, that could be thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's the same thing as if I'm on an azimuth, I'm walking the map course, the land nav course, and I know, or I don't know, really, the person that doesn't have the experience doesn't know they drift a direction, right? And they're going to drift 1 to 2 degrees. Well, 1 to 2 degrees over 100 meters is nothing. But 1 to 2 degrees over 5,000 meters, that's 500 meters.
Yeah.
You're not going to get there. You're not even going to be close to it. So put that in your mindset of money, revenue coming in, your cash flow coming into your business. If you're off 1 degree for that first day, that's okay. We can recover from that. But imagine 5 days of that 1 degree. Woo! Man, that starts to add up. And I don't know about you, but I'm still the guy that picks up a penny when I see it on the ground in Walmart parking lot.
I'll take it out of your pocket.
Yeah. I'll have to move over a little bit here.
But yeah, it's about shortening the feedback loop is what you're getting to. And it's the shorter that feedback loop is, the better, the faster you can make those improvements.
Yeah. I'll give you a real live example from my agency. This would have been back in November. One of my companies is a marketing agency. And we have several, Fortune 500 companies that we handle their presence marketing for them. And we found out that corporate cards got switched, right? So $250,000 worth of charges went to company A that were supposed to be company B, right? Oops.
Yeah.
But guess what? If we wouldn't have checked that till Friday, that would have been millions of dollars. So that's why it's important to keep your finger on the trigger.
You mentioned earlier when you were talking about, your transition and, getting into these businesses that you kind of got, you didn't say it this way, but you got bit by the entrepreneurship bug and you're looking at all these different ventures. You mentioned you're up to 14 now. How do you manage your time in a way that you can go get that new thing without letting those other, go start number 15 without letting 1 through 14 fail?
It's what you call really good general managers. Right? So my staffing agency, that's a great example right there. I love to do like the first year of stuff, but after that I get bored, right? So I got to move to something else, right? Otherwise I become a detriment to that business, basically. Mm-hmm. I will slow it down. And I know that about myself. So when I hit about that year mark in a company, I either appoint a general manager or a CEO, and I walk away. And I will do a meeting once a month. I get my numbers every day, so I know what's going on in those different businesses. And for me, I don't believe in time management. I believe in time allocation, right? Because none of us can truly manage time. If you figure that out, please let me know. But what I can do is allocate 168 hours a week, right? Mm-hmm. I can do that. I can allocate where every hour goes in its bucket. And where do all those hours go? Well, like everybody else, we're not productive all the time. That's crazy to even think that, right? But that productivity, as long as it's happening within the entities that I own, right? So think about it. I only have to be so productive. They only have to be so productive. And you put all that together, and that's what makes it a success, is that. All the productivity doesn't lie at my chair. Jesus, we'd be failing over and over again if I did that. I have to depend on the right people in the right seats to do the right things. And then when it's not, then I have to come in with the golden crowbar and fix it.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get stuck in a position or in one of your businesses where, like, you're talking about that 1 year where you have that 1 year of excitement, 1 year of energy, and then, you can feel it start to level off, or you drop off, not just level off. Did you ever get stuck in one of your ventures where you were there for, 18 months, 2 years, you still got it to that next point? Did you ever have that happen? And if so, what did that look like in that second year when you didn't have that same energy, but you still put in the work?
I did. And that's the current one I'm the CEO of right now.
So how's that going?
I know about that. He and I have had that conversation. Yeah, I know about that. Boy.
Because how's that going? Because that's a really
that one. So,
because that's such a relatable thing of, we all have that energy that drives us towards entrepreneurship. And then we all know you write the business plan and you say, oh, this is going to happen in 6 months. This is going to be 12 months, all of that. And then we all know that's BS. And then you get stuck there for the 2 year, 3 year, and you still want to put in that energy. So how do you figure that out?
Well, it's just getting through the suck, right? Because going through this, a couple dozen times already, I kind of know what to expect, and to a certain degree, right? I mean, markets change. Was probably 10 or 15 changes this week, right? In market shifts or so on and so forth that required decisions to shift with. Sometimes you make a good choice, sometimes you tank it, right? It is what it is. That's the strategic side of operating a business from a CEO seat. You don't get it right every time, but you try to get it right as much as you can, right? But none of us have a crystal ball that we can look at what next week's going to be. And one of my philosophies to keep my energy is I just drive my businesses like I stole them, right? That's it. Just drive them like you stole them, man.
Drive it like you stole them.
Right? Because today's pretty guaranteed. Tomorrow, not so much. So my mindset behind all that is just run like hell today and don't worry about tomorrow too much, right? Doesn't mean you don't outward plan, do all that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying don't get so tied to one thing today that it drives you into failure tomorrow.
That makes me think. So the flip side of this, I was going to say corollary, but I don't really think it's a corollary. The flip side to this is how do you prevent shiny object syndrome? Because when you've got 14 businesses, not only do each of those businesses have really cool things that, what if they did this? What if they did that? But you've also got this opportunity to, what about that 15th business and that 17th business and the 21st business? Yeah. How do you
number 23?
23.
I shot.
That's going to be a good one.
I shot the good idea fairy with a shotgun a long time ago.
Yeah.
You okay, Camden?
Yeah. Almost lost my coffee on that one.
But that's it, right? You have to control the good idea fairy because they're everywhere, right? And it's not just you, it's everybody around you, right? Has good ideas. But here's the thing, you got to listen to them, right? Because that's empowering, right? To listen, let people talk about what their good ideas are. And that doesn't mean you're going to use them, but part of good leadership is listening. Do more listening than you do, opening your cake hole, right? So listen to more and take that feedback in. Doesn't mean you're going to use it, but those are the good idea fairies, right? And all you can do for yourself is, try to just operate from a space where you deal with fact all the time, right? Deal with only facts. I get flooded with stuff, investment opportunities, all these things. Oh, this is a unicorn business, right?
They all are. I got 6 of them in my pocket right now.
That's right. And you just have to, I say every day I delete everything that went on up in my head for the day, right? And if you're running a company, just one company or one small business, you have to have a really short memory, right? You can't get caught up on, something crappy happened today. Great, it's over. You better delete it and move on, because if you let that eat away on you for the next 2 weeks, that's where you start to get the negative effects. And it's like, then the good idea fairy starts, right? It's like, well, here's 8 more ways I could fix that problem, right? When really there was only one way to fix the problem to begin with. So, if you look at things from some of those viewpoints, that'll help you get through a lot of that kind of garbage.
Well, thanks for the softball setup, because we've talked about this before on the rugby pitch. At each phase, if I miss a tackle and I waller in that tackle, my fact that I missed that tackle, what's happening in the next phase? What's happening the next time around? Even if the guy scores and they kick off and I'm still wallering in the fact that I missed a tackle, then I'm no help to the rest of the team, because all I'm doing is sulking myself. It's actually a selfish thing to do when you think about that, right? I mean, it really is. It's being that selfish person, because it's all my fault. Woe is me. Here, everybody come here and make me feel better, as opposed to, how do I do it better next time? How do I fix this, instead of, God, this sucks. Oh man, we really screwed this up. So I think that's a great way of looking at it. And
yeah, it makes me think of, I was just going to say, and I'm probably getting it wrong, but there was a commercial, I think it was just a Sports Center one, where they're going, I think it was Shaq he's talking to, he's like, hey, what's the secret to being great? Like, how did you get over that Game 7 loss, Western Conference Finals when you played for Lakers? What are you talking about? I didn't
exactly lose. I remember that.
No,
yeah.
I didn't lose. What are you talking about? And it's so funny watching it happen like that. But what you're talking about there, Dad, and this is important in business too, is that you need at least one. If everyone's doing this, it probably doesn't work. But you need at least the one person who can get that mentality of eternal optimism going every single time. It's like we talked about this with Reggie Walker, talking about the mentalities of different positions. And it's like a quarterback has to go out there every single time and say, I'm going to score. We're scoring a touchdown. I'm putting it in the corner. It's going to be beautiful. Every single phase of a rugby game, when I'm coaching, I'm thinking about how we're going to string together those next 4 phases, and we're going to go score a try right under the post, and we're going to tie this game up or whatever. We'd be down 60 points in a JV game against Cal, and I'm still going, all right, so what we need to do is boom, boom. And I'm still moving all those pieces like that, because as soon as you stop, you are just dead in the water. Like, as ridiculous as it looks sometimes when you're literally, lost to freaking Cal JV by 80 some points this year. At halftime, I still made all those adjustments for everything, because it's like, look, if you don't, it's only going to get worse. As weird as it seems to have that eternal optimism, you have to trick yourself into that sometimes for the good of the rest of the team.
I agree. And the leader's job is to be the eternal optimist. I mean, I've talked about that before. As a leader, you got to believe that we can get this done. And it just makes me want to shift to something that you and I've talked about a couple of times, but I've had this conversation. I actually had this conversation with a veteran group I'm part of this morning, talking about the processes, the systems that the military, particularly for us, the Army, has drilled into our head. It's how we think about everything. Share with us some of those processes that you use. And I won't do any leading suggestions because I really want to. I'm biting my tongue right now. But share with us some of those processes that you've directly taken out of your time in the Army and apply to business.
Yeah. So just take the troop leading procedures, right? If you don't know what the troop leading procedures, go look them up. Rims are kiss. That's how how we learned how to. That's the acronym for it. Anyway, but I took that same concept of the 8 troop leading procedures and I moved that into business processes. Receive the mission. I translated that to the front end of your customer acquisition process, right? Because that's an op order, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's your customer acquisition process. And then from there is sales, onboarding, so on down the chain. So I have an 8-step process that kind of, it's not perfect, but it takes elements of those troop leading procedures across. And, I always thought this. I mean, the military's been doing this stuff for hundreds of years. Jesus, why reinvent the wheel?
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap, right? But I also will say this. If you're out there and you're listening and you're going to start something, don't get bogged down with process now. Okay? You can be agile and lean and don't worry about putting this big, heavy process in place up front right now. Your number one goal should be to sell and create cash flow. That's it. Everything else is kind of BS, right? Or it's unimportant, right? So another philosophy I have is create the problem first, right? Mm-hmm. So create the problem, then create a solution to deal with the problem. You just don't let everybody on the outside see the problem. That's all. And everybody has it. If you pull back the curtains on any company, I promise you there's disasters. You'd probably go, why the hell am I listening to this guy? Pull the curtains back on most of my stuff, right? But it's managed chaos. That's what it is, all the time. And, process has to grow as you grow, right? Don't try to over-process things. Don't try to look too deep into stuff. You got a product, sell it. You got a service, sell it. And then start putting more process in to really support scale. That's what process is there for, to support you scaling. And in today's, everything I have is all tech pipelined, all of it. So, we created our own entire tech stack within one of my companies that can support anything I want it to support. So, but that came way down the road. That was only just a couple of years ago. So you think that's 20 plus years later, right? Creating something really robust like that. So yeah, just focus on getting there and then putting processes in place as you go, just in time. Do just in time work.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. So, as I was thinking about that is, there's this magic equilibrium where as you are growing, you're getting the processes in right in time. Little unrealistic. So I wanted to ask, if you had to be a little early or a little late, which one do you think you should err on the side of in your business?
Late. Be late. Better to be late. Because at the end of the day, it's all about cash flow, right? Back to cash flow. It's better to be late and go, holy crap, I need to do this now, right? Or, well, it wouldn't have mattered. Now you spent money that you could have reallocated somewhere else.
Well, and I'll just, on a personal note on that, on a project that I'm working on, I got reminded of that at a conference I was at last week. It's like the guy says, hey, Otis, you know what you're doing. And it's, of course, I know what I was doing wrong, right? But when you hear it from somebody else, it's like getting hit by a 2x4. It's like, get to market. Quit screwing around trying to get this super high-tech thing with all the bells and whistles and this perfect model of production and all this sort of stuff. How many businesses? Well, that's a great question. How many businesses have you run across that were on the brink of bankruptcy or never even getting out of the gate because of that?
Oh, Jesus. Lots of them, for sure. I worked with a manufacturing company out in California for close to 3 years, and they couldn't see that concept very well, and it about killed them, basically. Now, we finally, had enough crowbar moment to where we fixed it, but you're talking about two guys that are in their 60s and one's in their 70s set in their way, right? And don't want to make these shifts and pivots because they think their way of doing business, because that's the way we've always done it, right? Hate that saying, by the way. Because that's the mentality they were in. But the truth is what works last week might not work this week. And you better be able to do micro shifts in your business. And if you got a great idea, like I said, the first thing you want to do, get it to market and sell it so you can scale it and do it fast. Deal with all the problems en route. That's called entrepreneurship.
Well, it is, because it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the show. We're in businesses have to make money.
Yeah.
And if we're sitting here and we're drawing pictures and we're getting in the wood shop in the garage and we're cutting things and we're patting each other on the back and all that sort of stuff, that ain't making us no money.
That's called a hobby.
Exactly. I mean, we might as well be rebuilding your deck.
May as well.
Right?
There you go.
It's going to make us the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that because while we're going through all these business examples, one that comes to mind was from my time with Verby doing the virtual events in the pandemic. That business did not last, but because I said, because of advice like you're talking about now, Dad, because of that, and I started putting events together. Oh my gosh, it ran about 6-8 months longer than it ever could have if I wasn't getting out there and selling some of it, because I was building up that cash flow to keep the business moving. And I think it's one of those where it's like, you're going to learn those lessons at some point, and it's better to get in there so you can actually be moving on it, because especially like, I don't know, I was thinking especially for a company like that was so different at the time and trying to get all those different moving parts, you were never going to be able to draw up that diagram perfect. And that, that's one specific example. I was dealing with all these different vendors and different things, but every single business, even if it's not that complicated, you're still going to have that to work. Once it's going, things are going to come up every single time, and you have to start making those movements before you can learn those lessons.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. I'll drop a little piece of advice from a Fortune 50 CEO that happens to be my neighbor. And he said this: if you're a CEO and you can't sell your own stuff, you're dead. Mm-hmm. Right? You should be the best salesperson in your company. That doesn't mean you stay in that process forever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you can't even peddle your own stuff, then you better make a pivot to something else, right? Because don't expect other people to be able to sell, something that's garbage, right? Because you can't even sell it yourself. So every CEO, your number one job is to sell. That's your job. Your job is to sell, right? Go out there, cut deals, cut JV deals, make strategic partnerships. That's your job. Everybody's like, well, I'm a CEO. I'm just supposed to manage the P&L. That takes like 15 minutes a month, right? So your job is to be the face of the company and out there, and depending on what your business is, that means a lot of different things. But for me, I need to be out at events with people and doing stuff like that. And if I'm not doing that, my companies suffer, because, hey, lead from the front or get out of the way and let somebody else do it. That's just the truth of it.
This is there's something that I've personally been through with my businesses before, and really just business in general. Kind of what you're talking about is a lot of CEOs, and this is where I fell. I feel like people would always say I was good at sales, but I felt like I was good at selling the idea, not selling the actual product. Could you talk a little bit, Jason, about like the difference there of, maybe it's just a mindset switch or whatever it is? Because I have a feeling a lot of other CEOs are in that spot where it's like, you want to talk about the business idea, I could do that all day and you're going to invest in the company. But if I have to sell you one of my widgets, like, oh, that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah. It's approach, period, right? I sell stuff to people all the time, but I do it through relationship building, which is a lost art. Holy crap. I don't get on a call with somebody and it's, this sales pitchy stuff, right? That doesn't work. Nobody wants to hear that, right? But what's the saying? Everybody wants to buy. They just don't want to feel like they're being sold. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the key. So you focus on the relationship and you let that relationship take itself to the sale. I don't sell anything ever. Well, it is a form of sales, right? That's where you want it to go. But but it's based on relationship and not on, I don't try to treat things transactional, right? They end up transactional, but you could be 4 or 5 weeks down the road before you hit transactional phase, right? Because people, it's a different economy today. People want to know who they're working with, that they're not full of you know what. I mean, the market's so flooded with that garbage that it's hard to know what's legit, what's not legit, all these things, right? So we have to gain that know, like, and trust from people. And for me, I choose to drag that out as long as it takes. And that's one of my philosophies. I will give value for as long as it takes. And let people look through the transparent lens around me. And if I am the right person for them to work with, if I am, great. If I'm not, that's okay too, right? I'm not going to lose any sleep tonight over it. That's for sure. So take the approach of building relationships. And, if you're in the service industry anyway, and doing that, you'll see a pretty big change pretty fast.
I think I'll throw in there even in the product industry, because
Yeah,
you mentioned earlier, our strategic partnerships, JVs, things like that. I still got to build relationships, even though I'm selling a widget. I've got to have a relationship with my clients, the people that are actually going to buy it, for them to understand. And I know that's what you really meant.
Yeah.
In that sense, it's all comes back to relationships, and it's just reminds me of one of my favorite business books by Mark McCullough called On Selling. And it's a long book, but the whole theme of the book, the 300 plus pages, is just that: relationships. Mm-hmm. It's building relationships. It's not tricking somebody with throwing out what's the specifications and this, that, and the other, and mine is better than his, and you get this but not that, and if you get me. No, it's the relationship and establishing that trust. Because the water's pretty cloudy right now, and it's been cloudy for a long time. So establishing that relationship clears it up, because then there is that trust and there is that value understanding. I think that's huge. And shifting gears a little bit, I have this thought. It's it's not almost. I'm calling it like it is. It's a tongue-in-cheek question for you. Who's your favorite child? And I'm not talking about the ones upstairs or the ones back east. I'm talking about the businesses. Which one's the favorite one?
Boy, they all have their specialness to them. But
yes, there was an inflection in that word, folks.
But I've really come to really grow into the CEO seat in SAB. And I
think that's why you've been doing it so long.
Yeah, that's probably why. I really love it. It's the only company I've ever sat as the CEO for this long. I think we go into our 7th year next year with the model itself. Not SAB as a whole, but I was doing the model prior to that. SAB itself isn't 7 years old, but the model, I merged it from the previous model that I was already doing, and then smashed together a bunch of other entities. And, it's just a great functioning team. And I probably wouldn't be able to be here today if I didn't have such a great team over there. Do we have our challenges? Of course, just like anybody else, right? Nothing's perfect, but you do the best you can with it, and you rely on the right people. And that's why I do like the model of it, because, it's not just my child anymore. It's, 360 strategic partners' child too, right? Because they're helping build it. You're part of the community there. And, they're helping build that community too. And it's very cross-functional, and that's why I'm so in love with it, because I get to see, the cause and effect of, Jill hooking up with Frank that they've never talked in the network before, and now they're doing business together, right?
Yeah.
And it's having that reliability within people that you know and trust. That's why I love this company, and that's why it's my favorite child. For sure.
That wide range that you're talking about, all those different, industries, cross industry, all that kind of stuff. Do you think that helps to scratch that entrepreneurial itch a little bit? Because you talk about, avoiding the good idea fairy. One of the questions I was going to ask was, well, how do you still work those muscles? But it sounds like you're able to do that inside of SAB. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's all focus too, right? It's you have to, at some point in time, you will be forced to focus. You don't have a choice, right? Because now you have a lot of people that depend on you. It's one thing to be a solopreneur, and if it doesn't work and it goes down the tank, who does it affect? You, right?
Yep.
So when you have that really, focused drive, my only focused drive is that I know I have a lot of people that depend on me. It's no different than being in the military and you're in theater and you're walking out the wire with a platoon, right? Mm-hmm. You got a whole platoon behind you and you're leading out the wire, and you can't fail them. It's the same philosophy, no different. That's the way I look at it. It's just a business. But, hunting the bad guy is a business too.
So I've been thinking, and I always hate to do this thing because I feel like it's a cop out sometimes on what did I learn, because it was something you said really early on, but it's such an important piece, I think, for business leaders to understand it and truly adhere to it, because it gets lost. And it's the fact that P&L is a trailing measure. It is trailing data. It's stuff that's already happened. And if you're depending on your P&L to see where you're going, only P&L, you still use it, but depending on it to see where you're going you're going to fail. And I think we get, as business owners and business leaders, we get wrapped around the axle because what's the accountant always ask for, especially at tax time, right? Oh, I need to see your P&L. Send me your P&L. I need to see the breakout, blah, 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 blah. So we always get fixated on it. And then I've even seen job descriptions, got to have P&L experience. So everybody thinks that's the solution.
Yeah.
That's all I got to know. If I know P&L, we're going to be successful. But it's not. There's so much more to it. That's just one factor in the decision and in leading you to make the right decisions as the leader of the business. Mm-hmm. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, Jason, you said, when we're talking about the good idea fairy of just deal with only facts. And I love that. So simple of just when you're having all those good ideas, because, you got to stretch those muscles, just like I was saying, of recognizing where the facts are and where the assumptions are and only dealing inside of those facts. My slight caveat to that is because I think it's good to stretch the muscles that way. Maybe dip into the abstract stuff every now and then, just to, like I said, stretch those muscles because it helps with, to solve more problems. But when it comes to actually doing something, got to deal with facts. So I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jason, how about you? What'd you learn?
Stretching the muscles.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I would say is a really good takeaway. Right. And sometimes we got to hear stuff from other people because it's not that we don't maybe think about it. Right. But sometimes we've got to hear it from somebody else. It's like your wife. You can tell her something, right? And
careful.
But the neighbor says it. It's good to go, right? Yeah. Was that careful enough?
Yeah, that was pretty careful. All of us married exactly what you're saying.
I was going to say I have a very carefully calculated rugby example I use for that because I've walked down that road before. So I'll pass that one along on to you, Jason. So yeah, don't step into those waters.
Yeah. But no, I think that's great. I think that's a great learning thing, right? Is just because maybe we don't chase the fairies, you still have to, you got to throw some gold dust around every once in a while, right?
Yep.
And make sure that you are innovating, right? Because, you hear the saying, you got to live on the leading edge, right? Well, I'll take that a step further. Most of the time, you better be on the bleeding edge, right? Because the bleeding edge is where innovation lives, because it's hard. It's really difficult, right? It's the place where you're the most uncomfortable all the time, is out there where you're just getting bloody. You don't want to stay there too long.
It gets rough.
But you got to visit that place every now and then to remind yourself that, man, I need to innovate. So that's kind of stretching the muscles there, like you're talking about.
I want to add one thing there before we wrap, of just when you talk about innovating and, like we talked about, deal with the facts, and then there's there, and then getting out to that bleeding edge, like you put it. And then I mentioned like out to the abstract. I think the important reason to look at that full spectrum there is because when we talk about predicting things, we said at the very beginning, talk about the business plan. You're going to try to predict out how these things are going to go, but you're not really sure. We can't predict the future. So you have to spend time in those abstract stuff every now and then, because who the hell knows what's going to happen when it comes to stuff? Like, especially you start talking real big business stuff, AI interruptions, all that. It's like, to act like we really know is just foolish. So sometimes it's really good to step out there into that abstract land with all the good idea fairies, play around with it a little bit, come back to reality. Don't live there too long. But it's important to step out there every now and then, because then when something comes, it's the stoicism of anticipating the pain to take away take away the pain of the problem, I guess is a better way to put it. Paraphrasing quote, sorry. But it's like, it's important to be able to anticipate those things so that you can take away the pain from that interaction.
To be more prepared for it so it doesn't hurt as much. That's that's the other way of putting it.
Just don't get your head caught in a guillotine while you're out there.
Oh, yeah. So, Jason, how do people find you, connect with you? What's the best way to learn more about SAB?
Go to the website, www.strategicadvisorboard.com. I mean, it's a website. You can learn a lot about me if you just Google me, Jason Miller, Strategic Advisor Board. All kinds of crap will come up, and good luck sifting through all that garbage.
You're on LinkedIn too. LinkedIn. He's very prominent on LinkedIn. I think that I'll say that part for him. You can find him on LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect. And the what's the daily? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on
daily dose.
Daily dose. Yeah. I should have known it was simple. The daily dose. Yeah. Follow Jason so you can get in that line on or in the feed on LinkedIn for his daily dose. Is highly valuable, folks.
And it's stuff that I've actually learned throughout the years with a couple dozen businesses. It's starting to get stretched now because I've been doing it for almost 200 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, man, what am I going to talk about now? Holy crap. So sometimes it's hard to do series every day like that and keep it really valuable. But they're all lessons that I've learned. So hopefully you can get something from it.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, thanks for having me here. It's been a pleasure being here live in person. Always fun.
Time.
That's right. It must be whiskey time. Checking the clock. Oh, yep. The clock says whiskey o'clock. So
I need one of them clocks.
There you go. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, Jason Miller, for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pass along to someone else so they can enjoy it too. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Facebook and Instagram. And you can watch full videos of the show on our YouTube page. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button too. As always, the full archive of our episodes is available at www.camandotisshow.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.